Okay, we are back and answering more of your asks. The symbolism in season 11 is absolutely crazy and literally everywhere. I don't know if I noticed that thanks to you and your blog, but there's actually quite a lot. The main stuff I've noticed is Daryl covering the body of a woman that was bitten when he was with Leah. He also looked kind of sad, and I'm sure it wasn't just for that woman. When Judith is shot and Daryl takes her to the hospital and then he's unconscious and she drops beside him like the scene in season 6 when he's lying next to the zombie with the helmet. Love those scenes. Obviously, Judith's line, "You deserve a happy ending too." I don't recall any other right now, but I'm sure there's more. I'm just so excited and really hoping they'll give us and Daryl our Beth back. Yeah, absolutely. I don't know that I have a ton to add to this because, yeah, those were symbolisms that we saw and that I've talked about before. Definitely the body that he covered, we kind of related that back to Beth, the fact that he even shot this woman in the head. And in a lot of ways that was interesting because it shows that he's grown and in a lot of ways that he's accepted it. And I know that that's not what everybody likes to hear, but in a way I think he had to do that before he could find Beth again. He couldn't still be completely crippled by it. And in that, I mean, he was sad, like you said. He certainly has a sadness and a reverence for anybody that happens to, and I'm sure, like you say, that it made him think of Beth, but at the same time, it didn't cripple him the way that it did in season 5. So it was really interesting, and that was a lot of what Leah's storyline was for him, I think, is him growing up and maturing, and Gimple said that many times. Yeah, the hospital scene was definitely a big deal. We did relate it to season 6, and we always thought that those in season 6 represented him lying next to Beth. I haven't talked about it in a long time, but we did see what I always called the walker side-by-side theme, and it was not always, but usually a male walker and a female walker. And I do believe that it's because Gimple is so into all the symbolisms, right? He's into the tarot cards. He's into the zodiac. He's into the yin and the yang. He's into the male versus the female energy and the way that they complement each other. And that's why we see that. Now, the very first time we saw the walkers laying side by side, it was actually 2 male walkers, and it represented Rick and Shane. That was back in season 2. But I first started noticing it when analyzing season 4 because we saw the 2 that Carol burned. So it was Karen and David, male and female, lying next to each other. And then we saw Beth and Daryl lying next to each other in the field in Inmates when they were running. And it was almost the exact same posture, if you will, as the walkers. So, I do think that they represent the male and female energy and the way that they complement each other. And then when you get into the tarot cards, these are massive rabbit holes that we have done many, many, many metas and analyses on. But the piggyback is actually a representation of the whole being, both the male and the female energy put together. So again, Gimple, even though he's not going to come out and explain this in the show because he's not going to have a character break the fourth wall and turn to the camera and start monologuing about what the symbolism means. Okay, he's not going to do that. But he does use the symbolism in the story to build things and to foreshadow things. So seeing Rick and Judith do that was really, really interesting. Now, obviously, they do not have a romantic relationship, but neither did Rick and Shane. The 2 walkers side by side do not have to be a romantic relationship. It's just the male and the female energy. And I do think that was a foreshadow because there were also diamonds on the floor, if you remember that, when he and Judith were laying on the ground. And diamonds are a Beth thing. We saw them, for example, on the table in it was in Alone at the funeral home, and we've seen them lots of other places too. So I do think that was a foreshadow of sometime after the flagship show ended. They were foreshadowing what would come next for Daryl, and that's going to be finding Beth, who he originally laid in the field that way with her. That symbolism was really, really fun to analyze, and I thought it was really kind of haunting to see him and Judith laying that way together, especially because they both passed out, which is always disturbing. Why are they laying on the floor passed out? That's not good. Anyway, Judith's line, we heard it at the very beginning of the Daryl Dixon season 1. So obviously that line is leading to when Judith said it was a foreshadow of what would happen in the Daryl Dixon spinoff, not necessarily season 1, but the spinoff as a whole, all seasons combined. And the fact that they started with that line when he's still floating on the boat before he washes up on the beach shows, again, that is the theme for the entire Daryl Dixon spinoff. So what I always say is clearly, and you can see this all through season 1 by various things that they did, the whole spinoff, the whole point of it is for him to find his true love, his romantic interest, and his soulmate. That alone does not prove that it's Beth. It just proves that he's going to find that person. But I think we all know who that person is going to be, and I'm not worried about it being anyone else. So all I can tell you is that even if we don't see Beth in The Ones Who Live, even if we don't see her in season 2, let's hope not. I think we will see her in season 2. But the point is, the whole theme of the Daryl Dixon spinoff is so that he can find, finally, his soulmate. And that's what it's about. That's why they're having the spinoff, okay? They will bring him back to the main narrative. He and Rick will have a reunion. He will be part of the CRM war, but the spinoff is specifically about him finally finding romantic love. So that's super important. And they let Judith, they gave Judith that line, which I think they could have given it to anyone, but it is kind of interesting. I think we could see a tie between the fact that she was lying beside him on the floor, which means she was a Beth proxy in that moment. And then they gave her that line, which is, in my opinion, foreshadowing him finally finding Beth. So, and she is going to be his happy ending. See what I mean? So, there's tons of other stuff. I'm not going to remember any off the top of my head, but thanks for reminding us of that. It's really, really great symbolism, and it just gave me lots of hope, at the end. Okay, well, we're going into the spinoffs, and we are still going to see her. So people say, oh, you've been saying this for years, and oh, we didn't see her in the flagship show. Yeah, that's true, but that doesn't mean we won't, okay? It's not over till it's over, and they've given us so much foreshadowing that we are going to see her, and probably in the Daryl Dixon spinoff. So thank you for the ask. All right. Did you see the brief scene in The Ones Who Live episode 1 where Rick presses the bullet or shell to his forehead? Did you mention that in your video? No, I actually didn't. And I did notice it, but I didn't write it down in my notes. If I don't write it in my notes, I'm going to forget. So thanks for bringing that up, because I really haven't thought about it again since. So we did have a part where he very obviously presses the tip of it's a very long bullet. It's not like a bullet that would go in a handgun. It's more like a rifle round. And it's, one of those long, thin missile-looking bullets, that comes to a point. And he's pressing it against the left side of his forehead, exactly where Beth is shot. So no way that's accidental. No way Andy just kind of randomly did that. That was very, very intentional, and it is a foreshadow of Beth. And I think it's a foreshadow of her having a very similar arc to Rick's, because she always has, she's the other sheriff, and him and her have always been really heavily paralleled. So thank you for bringing that up. That was one thing I forgot to mention that was, definitely a Beth callback. Okay, hi, could you explain the filming chronology of season 5? Because I tried to understand, but there's so many contradictory informations about it. I'm a bit lost. The missing footage of Beth and Team Family at a house was filmed before the filming at Grady. Thank you. I don't know if it was filmed before Grady or after, but it was filmed definitely before season 5 aired. So during the time when they were filming all of season 5, so everything at Father Gabriel's church, everything at Grady, everything in Atlanta with Daryl and Carol. I mean, it was all done during the quote-unquote season 5 filming, and that is when the extra scenes with Emily at a cabin were also filmed during that time. And the reason we know about them is that, spoiler, cameras caught her going into that cabin, and she was wearing her yellow polo. So I couldn't say exactly what the chronology is in terms of whether that was filmed before or after Grady, but it was filmed within the same time period as Grady, and all of it was filmed before 501 even aired, like months before. So I'm not sure if that is what you're asking, or if you're talking about the chronology inside the show. But as far as I know, that's the filming chronology. It just was all filmed at the same time. And of course, we saw most of it. We saw the stuff at Grady. We saw the stuff at Father Gabriel's church. We saw, they had a filming of, it was the parts that is in 509 when Rick and Michonne and Glenn are on a porch and they kill some walkers, and then Noah comes to tell them Tyrese has been bitten. Like, they even had that, spoiler cameras catching that. And at the time, they didn't know that Tyrese was going to die, or that was his death episode, because he wasn't in that scene. He was in studio when he filmed all of the death stuff. But anyway, so we saw most of it. But the point is that there was some stuff that we clearly saw them filming either because of spoiler cameras. Well, I guess always because of spoilers cameras, but they did actually catch her going into the cabin. And then they caught, indirectly, they caught the stuff that was filmed at a white church. And they couldn't see it because there were fences in front of it, but they could tell there was filming going on there. It was at night, and there were lights, and there were people talking, and there were cameras. And they could only see the steeple of the church, but something was filmed there. And obviously we didn't see that either. So, yeah, the point is there was just stuff filmed during the filming time of season 5 that we have not seen, that has never been released. It's never been shown as a deleted scene, anything like that. And it definitely has to do with Beth. I mean, Emily was definitely there filming, and so that's why we know that there are scenes that she filmed for season 5 that were not at Grady that we have not seen yet. And if they had just cut those as in, oh, we're not going to use those instead, they would have been released as deleted scenes. They have not been released yet. So they have yet to be released, and I have no doubt that it was the missing 17 days, because she was wearing her polo, which means it had to have been after Grady. If it was during Grady, she would have been wearing the scrubs, right? And so it had to be after Grady. And I know what it is. I have posts about this, you guys. They tried to bury Beth at a white church. A Walker horde came through. That's why they left her in a car, because they had to run from the Walker horde. And she was literally dead weight to them. They thought she was dead. So they left her in a car so that the Walker horde couldn't get her, and they were planning to wait until the horde passed through and then come back and bury her. But when they did, the car door was open and her body was gone. Okay, so all of that happened during the missing 17 days, and we have evidence that they filmed it, and they just haven't shown it to us yet. And they wouldn't, because then everybody would know that her body disappeared, and they don't want people to know that, or everybody would know that she's alive, right? So anyway, I don't know if that's what you're asking, or if you're just asking about the filming chronology, but hopefully that answers your question. If it doesn't, feel free to send something in again. All right, not sure if you are aware, but there's an actress named Luna Love on Twitter and Instagram with a small following, liking and retweeting EK's stuff, like her music and posts that hints Beth and TD things. From what I've seen on her page, the actress has only done voice acting stuff right now. Do you think this has anything to do with TD or The Ones Who Live? Did she work with EK on set or on the flagship show before? I don't think I can comment on this because I don't know. I have not heard of this actress. I have not seen her account. I can look into it. But unless we actually see... I mean, obviously the actor's name is probably not Luna Love. That sounds like a handle that's named after Harry Potter's Luna Lovegood. So unless we knew her name and could see that she is credited as working on something with Emily, there's no way to know whether she knows her or not. So anything I say would just be conjecture. You know, it's possible, but there would be absolutely no way to prove it. And she really could just be a fan who's retweeting Emily because she's a big fan of hers. So I couldn't say one way or the other on that. I would need a lot more evidence in order to draw any hard and fast conclusions. And finally, happy Stilliversary. This was a few days ago. We hit the 10-year anniversary of when Beth went missing in Still. So this is not the Codeversary, this is the Stilliversary. And yeah, thank you for sending that to me. I'm super busy and I kind of let it pass by. But I will say that Still was the episode that made me a ridiculously diehard fan and made me a Bethyl shipper for life and made me a TDer for life and all of that, because I've told this story before. I was definitely a fan of the show before that. I've watched it since the pilot episode, but I was not someone who would get online necessarily and geek out about it. I was just someone who showed up loyally and watched it every week because I really liked it. And when I saw, I guess it wasn't Still. I'm thinking of Alone that made me the diehard fan. It was when she disappeared, right? So people say she went missing in Still. I don't know if they mean Alone or if they're just messing up that she didn't actually go missing in Still. She went missing in Alone. But anyway, the point is that when I saw Still, I just assumed the romance would be there. I wasn't overanalyzing it too much, but I was going, I like it. That's cute, And I was really excited for them to get together. But when she was actually kidnapped and taken from him, I mean, that just flipped the switch in me. It was all over. The rest is history, and I've been here ever since. So happy Stilliversary to you as well. And here's hoping that we get her back this year. All right, guys. As of the recording of this particular video, that is all the asks I have. So if you have more questions, be sure to send them to my inbox. Otherwise, I will be back next week to analyze episode 3 of The Ones Who Live. I'm really, really loving it, and I hope it continues to bring us some really great stuff. See you soon.